Welcome. R/malicious compliance. You would like me to adhere to the contract? In that case I require a hotel until you resolve all of these issues. A few years ago, I moved back to the city in which I was a university student, as I was now a young professional and had experienced significant issues with housemates in the past, non-payment of bills, having to do all the cleaning. I decided that I would rent a small flat from a reputable agency which specifically catered for young professionals such as myself. I went and viewed the property, which was quite messy and needed to have a few things addressed, i.e. the vinyl flooring in the kitchen was ripped, one of the drawers in the freezer was broken. But seeing as tenants were still living in the property, and the agency assured me that between tenants the landlord would clean the property and resolve any small issues prior to moving in, I happily signed a contract and wrote a checks for the deposit and first month of rent. 2 months later, I moved into the property and was welcomed with the following issues. Note, I just happened to stumble upon the list I made at the time when clearing out an old hard drive a few days ago. General. The entire property had not been cleaned. Fire door wouldn't close. Breach of fire regulations. The previous tenants had left much of their belongings behind, namely clothes and bedding. General waste was present in all rooms. Bins had not been emptied. Batteries had been removed from all of the fire/smoke alarms. By law, they were meant to be hardwired in rented property. Half of the light bulbs had been removed from the property. Hallway. Main supply and circuit breaker ripped from wall. Incredibly dangerous. Carpet soiled. Bedroom. Slats on bed broken, so would not have been able to sleep on it. Mattress torn and ripped. Vinyl floor ripped up. Window jammed closed. Bathroom. Fecal matter on light switch. Mirror broken. Toilet had not been cleaned. Still had fecal stains in bowl. Shower door broken off hinges. Vinyl floor torn up. Kitchen/living room. Washing machine broken. All drawers in fridge freezer absent or broken beyond repair. Gas cooker, missing burner caps and pan rail, therefore unusable. To cupboard doors hanging off. Vinyl floor ripped up. Curtain pole ripped down. It was very clear that two things had occurred here. The first being that the previous tenants had done a bit of a number on the property. That they had not respected the property and had left quite a lot of damage in their wake. They did not even have the decency to empty the place of their contents and at bare minimum, take the rubbish out before leaving. The second issue, however, is that the landlord had evidently not made any significant attempt to bring the property back into a habitable state prior to me moving in. Being the reasonable guy that I was, I called the landlord and asked if he could resolve these issues immediately. Primarily as the property was genuinely in a dangerous and non-inhabitable state. I did not want to be a dick about it, however, at the bare minimum, the flat should be safe to inhabit. The landlord dismissed all of my complaints and stated that his wife, he was on a business trip to Dubai, had inspected and cleaned the property a few days before, and all was fine. A blatant lie. I told him that I was extremely unhappy with the situation, and he told me to adhere to the contract which I had signed. He subsequently put the phone down. Any sympathy I had for the landlord evaporated at this moment. He was happy for me to live in a dangerous property, so I went through my contract line by line and found two key pieces of information. If a property is deemed to be in breach of fire regulations and/or is deemed uninhabitable by a suitable representative, it is the responsibility of the landlord to resolve such issues immediately. If the landlord cannot resolve such issues immediately, it is the responsibility of the landlord to provide alternative accommodation to the tenant until the property is returned to a habitable state. Fortunately, a close member of my family at the time was a fellow of the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. Within the hour I had a formal letter stating that the property was uninhabitable and dangerous. I had this emailed to the landlord, address helpfully listed on the contract. Within 10 minutes, I had a call from him arranging emergency accommodation at a local hotel until he returned from his business trip 3 days later. On his return, he drove directly to the property from the airport and returned the checks for my deposit and first month's rent to me and asked me to move out, which I gladly did. Unbeknownst to him, a copy of the letter had been sent by my family member to the housing ombudsman and the local authority. The last thing I heard is that this bloke ended up being investigated, heavily fined, and had to sell the house. TLDR, landlord rents me dangerous property and tells me to adhere to the contract. I adhere to the contract and get a weekend in a hotel, all of my money back, and he is heavily fined and sells the property. Edit. I don't know what golden gilded means, but thank you. Being completely honest, and maybe I'm being too forgiving here, I genuinely think that the landlord was negligent through laziness. I don't think he actually knew how bad the property was, and had probably just blissfully ignored anything brought to his attention. He has probably had people move in over the years who have been precious and moaned about everything. When he heard me describe, legitimately, that the main/circuit breaker was hanging off the wall, he probably thought I was confusing a light switch. This doesn't stop him from being a bad landlord. He should have checked the property before letting it. But I think it was ignorance and opposed to maliciousness on his part. We, roommate and I, viewed several apartments before settling on our current digs. Pro tip: if the apartment complex has luxury in the name, it is indicative of the opposite. If they have to tell you, then it's not true. The lady giving the tour opens the door and immediately it smelled like the Marlboro man just moved out. When we commented, she said, "Oh, that's just the new carpet smell." I said, "I have laid carpet before. It does not smell like this. Also, there are stains in the new carpet." She did not have a response. We glanced in the kitchen and there was a stove older than my deceased grandmother's stove. It had an analog temperature gauge. Analog. We all kind of looked at each and, without even speaking, turned and walked out the door. The landlord stated his wife cleaned the place. Obviously his wife has never darkened that door. Either his wife is lying to him, or he is lying to Opus. Former property manager here. Only a terribly irresponsible landlord or agent would let tenants move out and new ones move in without having someone inspect the property. If you own investment property, that is your income. A responsible investor makes sure his money is taken care of. Op dodged a serious bullet there, and the only reason the landlord was reasonable about it is that the condition of the apartment could literally bring in the local version of the health department. Landlord is a serious idiot for not taking better care of his investment. We moved over 3,300 miles, southwest Florida to an island in the Pacific Northwest. When we arrived at our rental, we found out the difference in what people believe clean is. Yes, there was no garbage or items out of order, but we spent 3 days cleaning the clean kitchen. If you quickly look at it, all seemed well. If you went up and touched the countertops or range top, or opened the drawers, you would see the fine film of grease over everything. The slide out breadboard? Well, after the previous tenants had used it to cut pizza, they had just flipped it over, so the pizza stained side was now on the bottom. Out of sight, out of mind. We ended up getting half our first month's rent back. Will be buried by now, but here's pro tips for when one moves into a new apartment. Prior to entering the apartment for the first time, sign up for YouTube if you haven't already done so. As you enter for the first time, use your phone to shoot video. Slowly cover your apartment space and inspect things. Room by room, closet by closet, cabinet by cabinet. As you go, call out the things that need to be addressed. Make sure all spaces are recorded. After you've covered your whole place, upload the video to YouTube as a private video, so no one else can watch, unless you change the video settings later. The video will be time-stamped on your channel. Important proof that the inspection took place no later than this date. Now you have the state of your apartment documented at the time of moving in. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit like. If you would like to see more, feel free to subscribe.